Hello, this is Deacon Joseph, and this is the National Dennis channel. And I've chosen a question topic that kind of at the beginning of the night was going to do, and I still plan to do, of course, part seven of unorthodox apologetics, which is psychology, a few times. But the reason that I decided to do this now is maybe it's just because I guess it's the YouTube algorithm. Once you start to click on one thing, new things is lead to another thing. And if anyone knows and follows my channel, I have been reading more and watching more things like stuff from David Wood. I've been watching stuff on Apostate Prophet. I've been watching stuff like Christian Prince. I started watching recently in Arabic some of the different translations now of Mustafa Abu Sayyid, I think it is. Oh, you can barely hear me. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can fix it. Here. Is that better? Wondering if that's better. If not, I will loud fan that. Okay, that's new. Give me a second. I'm going to play something different. Alright? Yeah. Okay, one moment more, please. Okay, let's see here. Output devices, headphones. Can you hear me now? I've switched headphones. Okay, great. So as I was saying, I don't know what's exactly caused this, but it's probably the YouTube algorithm. I've been spending a lot of time, as I said, watching stuff by David Wood, by Apostate Prophet, um, by Skylar Orthologia. Um, a lot more stuff on Islam. Seems like there's just like Islam is on the brain. There's just so much stuff, and Christian Prince. I've been really just watching a lot of this stuff, and it's funny because as I watch it, I'm more and more confused. And what I mean by that is not confused about my faith, obviously, but confused about how ridiculous could this Islam be. Like it blows my mind. It's a religion of 1.8 million billion people, but apparently it's just so bizarre if you just base it on videos that I'm like sitting here like this cannot, it has to have some coherence. It has to. And I'm a skeptical person. So, of course, I'm like, does it have coherence? So I decided, okay, I'm going to try to read the Quran. And so I decided to go with it. And I did not know, for example, first off, I should establish a couple of things. The first thing is that the Quran is a book. Unlike the Holy Scriptures, which are multiple books, the Quran is basically one book, presumably with one author, so on and so forth, written over a period of time, and all these revelations and stuff like that. So I'm like, all right, so I'm gonna try to read the Quran. So I open it up, and the first it's funny because I basically had this entire conversation with my stepdaughter and son-in-law, so I'm like just repeating it again. So I decide first off, how am I going to read the Quran? So I think to myself, okay, I don't want to buy a Quran because if you buy a Quran, what I've learned from getting the Book of Mormon when I saw a TV advertisement and whenever you respond to like the Watchtower magazines by mail, they come with free propagandists. In other words, you mail out for that Book of Mormon, you do the 1-800 number, all of a sudden Mormons are at your door like 2 weeks later and you're stuck there. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I don't want to order a Quran anywhere because it might come with free Muslims and I don't need that. So I'm like, this is, the internet era. It's a great age for that. So I was like, and I also wasn't going to spend like $10 on Barnes and Noble or anything like that. But in any case, so I realized you can actually not purchase, but you can actually read the Quran for free. So I was like, okay, so I'm gonna do that, and then I realized there's like 100 or maybe more different versions of the English translation of the Quran. And that makes me a little bit nervous because then as soon as you're reading it, oh no, you've read the wrong one or something like that. There's always some ridiculous thing. So I found this thing called Quran O, and so this thing apparently has a whole bunch of translations of the exact same text. So unfortunately, every line is like, has like 10,000 different translations. And when you get all the way to the bottom, I've learned so many new words. Apparently, there's hadith. And so they've got that here. This is this Ibn Kathir guy. And so he gives like the interpretation of it. So I used this one and another one. I started reading these. And so I started reading these. And so after I did that, I went to, start at the beginning because if it's one book, you may as well start at the beginning, right? So that's what I did. And the first chapter, which is, it's basically, I guess, I learned this on Wikipedia that I guess Muslims use this in their prayer. It's like really weird because most of the time it's just talking about how great Allah is, so on and so forth. And, it's like God is great, God is good, God is great. And I'm like sitting here like waiting for like some stolen biblical verse or something, because right now it's starting to sound like an Arabic version of Joan Osborne's God is One of Us. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna plow through this, and if it seems like I'm going through this quickly, it's because this is a frustrating process that began last night. So I'm going through this first thing. I'm not noticing any particular beauty in it, but maybe that's just because I don't speak Arabic, and maybe this just sounds fantastic in Arabic. I don't know. But so I get through the first thing, this talk about deceivers and stuff, but I'm like, no, that's great. What I didn't know was once I finished that chapter, the second chapter, known as The Cow, yes, that's really what it is. It's The Cow. That's the second chapter. Apparently, is the longest longest chapter in the entire book. So I'm like, okay, all right, I didn't know that, and it's kind of a slog. I'm gonna be honest, because it starts giving this bizarro world history of the Old Testament. Like it's like kind of like mixed in, but it's like kind of like attempts to make some sort of revised version of the Old Testament. I don't want to go that far because it's not that detailed, but it gets to the point where I got to. Let me see here. I got to, I think it was Surah 2, and it's the Surah is a chapter for those who are new to this. And I got to like 54. And in 54, this is like where basically this is the bizarre world history of the golden calf episode with the prophet Moses. And so you get there, and apparently Moses tells everyone to kill themselves. And so they do. And then, because Allah is just like that, he just brings them all back from the dead. I'm kidding you not. That's literally verse 56. It's like round 2. And so, like, just out of nowhere, Allah's like, yep, you got to come back from the dead. And this happens a couple of times. Like, you'll notice, I haven't even gotten up to the Jesus thing. I have read the stuff where they have said, the little parts of the Quran, like in Maryam, like, oh, Jesus wasn't he didn't really die. And I'm sitting here like, okay, but Allah's killing people and bringing them back like a video game in chapter 2. So I'm trying to figure out exactly why everyone can be resurrected except Jesus. It makes less and less sense. And this continues on. And so they go through that. And then it gets to, I thought the golden calf was the cow at first. That's what I thought. Because it's called the cow. So you would think that's the cow. No, that is not the cow. The cow shows up later, apparently because Allah wants them to sacrifice a cow. And I'm just going to go through the faster one, which lacks all the discussion. So I got to go back to that. And so basically, he asks them to get a cow. And strangely enough, he asks them to get a golden cow. Now, sometimes it's referred to as a hay-colored cow, but the point is that it's a golden cow that they have to go kill. And because they don't understand him the first time, like they're like, what do you mean golden cow? And so then he gives them an even weirder answer. I'm not kidding. I wish I was making this up. I just got to find the cow. Let me just use that and see if I can find it that way. So let's see if I can go like that. Okay, that doesn't help at all. All right, so we're going to keep on scrolling. I'm like scrolling through. This is again the longest book in the longest chapter in the Quran. I keep thinking books because I keep realizing this is not designed like the scripture. Oh, here we go. Okay, so it wasn't that much further there. It was just so let's see, 69. So we go to Surah 69 because that's where it starts, the stuff with the cow. So call upon your Lord to show us what is her color. He says it's a yellow cow, bright in color, pleasing to the observers. I don't know. I guess he wanted his own golden calf to be killed. I have no idea. And this continues on. But then they're like, could you call upon the Lord to make us clear what it is? I mean, all cows look alike to us. And so, obviously this is not a unique cow. And so, but of course, Allah, he gives answers that it's a very untrained cow, very important that it's untrained. And so they slaughtered her, but they could hardly do it. I don't understand why killing a cow is so difficult, especially if you farm them. But apparently they kill the cow. So the point is, then it becomes like a long version of basically like Bizarro Leviticus. Like it said, then he just switches up into talking about rules and talking about unbelievers. Just as I was starting to lose absolute patience with reading this, suddenly, like clockwork in the book, it says, you must believe. And I'm like, okay. And then apparently doubting the prophet is wrong. The next verse. And I could just pull it up because it's just, I started reading that and I'm like, wow, really? So like once you just can't handle any more of it, now you just got to go on blind faith. Nah, that's not how I roll. But so let me see here. Let's see where, apparently and then it goes into like what the Jews like not like believing Muhammad, which I thought was kind of funny because it's like that's not a prophecy, that's a given. If you're going and taking over towns and stuff like that violently, and you're like, okay, these people are claiming to have the God of Abraham, and I'm running a Jewish village, I'm gonna be like, you know what? We agree, guys. Just don't run us over and stuff. And so, that to me just seems like common sense. And so, but apparently, like, it keeps on talking, like, about how, like, you got, like, it says, like, the Jews and the Christians are friends, even though apparently then they disagree with each other and don't like each other. And I'm like, it's not that they're friends, it's that they just mutually dislike you because you're producing this weird version of history where you've got, like, King Solomon and the prophet Moses and Abraham and Isaac who are in Mecca building the Kaaba. Yeah, this is all in this chapter. They apparently build the Kaaba in Mecca. I don't know why. That's a massive. I've put enough stuff from other people who have talked about the Mecca thing. It doesn't really make sense, but I really began to come across, and I still have not. I'm going to be honest. I have not finished the second chapter. I can't imagine anybody who is at least moderately educated in Christianity and understands the biblical figures reading this and saying, you know what? This sounds like the truth. I can't see it. And I thought I'd have some great insight that would be even better and more fun and awesome than that. And I don't. I'm like actually a little disappointed in myself. And as I continue reading, the worse I feel because of the fact that I can't possibly, with what I know, believe this. And the thing is demanding that you believe it. This particular book is demanding that if people don't believe it, you fight them. This is where the fight, your enemies of Islam, it all starts here, right in this book, chapter 2. There's not like, it's not deep buried in it. Like, I would honestly suggest that if somebody was actually looking at apologetics towards Islam, probably read chapter 2. It'll take you a while. It may hurt. But I would definitely read that one because that one and Maryam, I'd love to say I read the whole Quran, and that's just not true. But I think chapter 2 and chapter 9 have enough food for thought, for lack of a better word, to kind of figure out and kind of take apart. Because I can't possibly see the logic when I read, and I read the St. John of Damascus's thing on Islam, and it's kind of mocking. It is because, and it honestly, I can see how it kind of deserves to be. But the problem is that St. John then discovered in his own lifetime, because raiders kept on attacking everywhere that he lived, he had to move like 4 times. Because of the fact that he's like, this religion's ridiculous. And I can see why someone would think that, because he was a person of education. But if this is somebody who was focused on, and there's kind of ethnic promises to like these Arab peoples in the second one. So it's kind of like marketed to them. So the point is that it's kind of like, how do I put this? They're kind of, it sounds good to them because, like the Jews and the Christians couldn't do it, but you can. And that's why I'm talking to you this time. And so it's like tailor made for what Muhammad was trying to accomplish, which is run everything and become, great king and all that fun stuff. But as in actual text for people who have read and know about biblical history, like I couldn't imagine a conservative, an Orthodox Christian. I could not imagine one who takes the reality of the prophets literally, reading this one chapter and just going, wow, that makes sense. I'm not even talking about the Jade Mountain that the angels live on in like the first chapter. That one got me. I was like, wow. At that point I was like, okay, this sounds more like D&D than it does a religion. But it's kind of crazy. The yellow cow didn't help. I actually decided to look up yellow cows, and they're like found in Mongolia and China. And I'm like, okay, what is this? Is Allah like Asian? I mean, it was weird. It's weird. And I don't want to be rude, but it's kind of like, why is he talking about yellow cows and angels on Jade Mountains? It just felt a little bit too kung fu-y, and it made no sense. So basically, this was not going to be a long episode, but I'm going to be honest with you. I really was going to have fun with this. I mean, I was going to, basically like, kind of make it memey and, put a memey ending. I even had like, look, I'm not even kidding. I had like, hold on, I had this. I was going to make this into an ad at the end for like and subscribe from the Orthodox Apologetics channel. Just write my words on the top. I can't. I'm actually mentally saddened by what I had to read, and that actually makes me upset. It actually started making me a little angry, because I think, and I would think, like the Christians and probably the Jews at the time, that their intelligence was being insulted. And that's the impression I get. And the people that he was aiming for, that Muhammad was aiming for, were people who had little to no knowledge of Christian or Jewish tradition outside of very basic stuff, which is why Ramadan, he puts it in. There's no reason for Ramadan. It's covered in chapter 2. It's just everyone knows that's the period of the fast. Now that falls around the time of the Jewish Passover, when we celebrate Great Lent. So everyone just kind of knows it. So that's why Allah's like, you guys know this already. It's Ramadan. You're supposed to fast. So it's almost like tailor-made for people who don't really know much about Judaism and Christianity. I certainly didn't see this perfect book. I certainly didn't see perfect prose. I admit I've read in translation quite a few of them, and not many of them sound very good. And but the point is, again, if you're using the Arabic argument, that's fine. But just on the history alone on this chapter, and I'm going to be honest, I labeled this part 1, and I don't know how much I actually want to do this topic after reading it. If I'm being completely honest, because after reading 2 chapters, I find it intellectually offensive. I mean, I hate to say that, and if people disagree, they're free to. I doubt anyone's going to issue me a corrective or say that I'm wrong, because I'm not literally quoting from anything except the 2nd chapter of the Quran, which is called the cow. And so that's really all I have to say. I don't know if there are any questions or comments. I didn't have any. But if there are, it seems fairly quiet right now, which is good. Thank you for listening. And as I said, if you really want to engage this sort of stuff, I mean, chapter 2 is probably a great place to start. But don't say I didn't warn you. It's quite a slog, and it's not what it is. If you are fairly versed in the Old and New Testament, this will bring massive disappointment. And that's all I got to say about that. And so I don't feel like talking too much because I have a bit of a toothache and I've had one for a couple of days. Just thought I'd mention that in case my toothache is something worse. And then people are like, oh, this is because of Islam. No, it's not. I had this toothache for like a week. So anyway, other than that, if there's no other questions, I'd like to thank people for listening. Thank you all for being here. Tomorrow is, of course, Sunday. So all the best for tomorrow. And thank you again for your questions, comments, and have a great night.